Check the Real G Spotlight magazine. It's out every monthly issue, and you can get that at www.madcloud.com. Again, you get that at www.madcloud.com. It's called the Real G Spotlight magazine. If you wanted to be on that, you can contact me on my Instagram at officialrealg.
Hello, everyone. This is Sergeant Gonzalo Duran, once again from Devil Dog USA. I'm the CEO, and I'm asking you for your help. 99% of all our programs and events is free to the community. We do this by having sponsorship that's at a sliding scale, and we ask for small donations from the community. So how can you help us? Well, one, you can go to our website, www.devildogusainc.org. Look at the articles, look at the events that we do, look at the pictures, and if you have it in your heart, go on our donation page and help us out. If you want, go to one of our events, see how the community helps us, see how we give ourselves and we support and we bring the community in one place to support the military, the veterans, and the community itself, and drop off a little cash to our donation boxes. And until I see you guys, as always, God bless America. Hello, everyone. This is Vet Talk, and I'm your host, Sergeant Gonzalo Duran. This episode marks our 6-year anniversary. I'd like to thank our executive producers, JM Empire Media and Vero G Productions. Today's honored guest is Senator Luis Sepulveda, my local senator. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here on the 6th anniversary.
Oh, thank you. Now, for the viewers that may not know, what is a senator?
Well, we know that hopefully we all know that there are, at the state level, 3 branches of government. And you have your legislature, you have your New York State Assembly persons. There are 150 Senate Assembly persons throughout the state. And you have the New York State Senate, which is different from a U.S. Senator, which is Chuck Schumer. We are state senators, and there are 63 of us throughout the state. And our biggest responsibilities are twofold. One is, obviously, the New York State budget, which we participate in. We add, we subtract, we fight, we scratch. We have differences with all levels with the governor and so forth. The objective is for me as the senator representing the 32nd District, which is the poorest senatorial district in New York and maybe one of the poorest in the entire country. My job is to fight to get as much money for schools, and programs, and rent, and things of that nature. The second job that I have as a senator is to create legislation that will help primarily my district, but sometimes it helps the entire state. So we work with our local assembly persons. For example, I have about 4 or 5 assembly persons in my district. And in order for me to pass legislation, I need a sponsor from the New York State Assembly to sponsor the proposed legislation in that chamber. And vice versa. If an assembly person wants to pass legislation, they have to have a Senate sponsor. Once there's a meeting of the minds and we can pass the proposed bill in both of our houses, then it goes to the governor, and the governor has the option of signing it into law or vetoing. We also deal with the governor even on budget issues where we ask her for programs that are important to our community. So me having the poorest district, I lobby a lot for dollars that are going to help primarily our kids' education, housing our seniors, and to fight crime.
And you do that and from offices, one in, I believe, in Albany,
Yes.
and one in your district.
Right. We have it's called the district office, and that's where we essentially provide the services to people that live in the community. A lot of constituent service work. That's where we do a lot of eviction prevention, people with health issues, people that need assistance with rent. We have a lot of programs and not-for-profit organizations that we're associated with that allow us to assist these individuals. Then we have our offices up in Albany. The use in Albany of the office is usually from when session is, which is January to June. We spend a lot of time up there. So we have staff up in Albany, and we have staff here in the Bronx.
And how did you, what's your background that you became a senator?
I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
My family from Puerto Rico. I went to school, elementary school in Brooklyn, and I also lived in Queens. So I went to public school both in Queens and in Brooklyn. In 1982, I attended Hofstra University I got my Bachelor of Arts in Natural Science. My degree is actually a combination of physics, chemistry, and biology. But at some point, my intent was to go to medical school, but then I lost to decide I want to go to medical school and got an interest instead on being a lawyer. So in 1988, I attended Hofstra University Law School and graduated in 1991, passed the bar, thank God, on my first shot, and I've been an attorney now for 31 years.
Awesome. So as a senator and a lawyer, practicing lawyer still?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I still practice, although the legislature just passed, when they increased our salaries to $142,000, they passed a restriction on outside income. So I'm restricted from earning more than $35,000 a year from my law practice. So essentially, the most I can make now is $177,000 a year.
Of course, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, in Vet Talk, the goal, purpose is to try to get individuals and organizations that have resources to help the veterans and the community in general. So for the viewers out there, a Senate office is where a hub of resources like legal, tax preparation, et cetera, will be there. Do you have any particular ones that you would want the audience to know about?
What we help, look, obviously, when a veteran comes to my office, they will be treated with all the attention and respect that they deserve. We have, for example, listings of many affordable housing developments. We have a lot of listing of healthcare centers that provide free health care to our veterans. I am proud to say that the Director of Communications of my office is a gentleman by the name of Ruskin Pimentel, who is still in active service. He's still in the National Guard. He did a tour in Iraq. He did a lot of work. He's Dominican by birth, but he did a lot of work with the United States Army. For example, in Puerto Rico, when they had the earthquakes and the hurricanes, he was one of the first feet on the ground over there to help the local people. Ruskin really guides me on a lot of the issues that impact veterans, PTSD, services in general that are available to veterans, veterans hospitals, some of the issues that impact them, some of the issues of mental health that a lot of veterans are suffering from, poor mental health. Because of Ruskin and because of the work in my office, our services are available to every veteran that needs assistance. One of the biggest problems that we have is housing. A lot of times, some of our veterans come over, they're about to get evicted. Many times they don't know the law, or they're at a disadvantage because the landlord hires an attorney who obviously is in a better position to litigate an eviction case. What we do is we have several organizations like NYCA, NYLAG. These are organizations that provide free legal assistance to veterans if they are about to get evicted. In extreme cases where the behavior of the landlord is so egregious and it impacts, for example, a senior citizen, a disabled person, there have been cases where I actually, as a practicing attorney for 30 years who did a lot of work in housing court, well, I will myself go on a pro bono basis and represent the person for free. So it's something that we work on every single day, and these services will always be available, high-quality services for the veterans that come to our office for assistance.
I love that, Senator. Honestly, my office has been in your district for 5 years, and I've been living there for over a year, and I didn't know that. So thank you for telling us that. One of the programs for the housing specifically is something that we used to work on. When I came back from the military, I actually had a problem with homelessness and unemployment, but it wasn't like a long-term period situation like a lot of other veterans were facing. For me, I had thousands of dollars in my pocket, but using the GI Bill, I was being discriminated with the landlords because it's not taxable. There was no documents to say this is real money. It was just something from the federal government saying you have this such and such months per year to go to class and you get this amount of money. Something that realtors, lawyers realtors and landlords didn't know about. So I honestly went on Fox News, CBS, articles, did as much as I could in trying to get the word out on the situation. And 5 years later, one of the things that I was able to see was the New York City Human Rights Act 119 dash 2017, which was passed, which prohibited landlords from using the GI Bill as discrimination against paying, which, although it didn't go to your level, that's something that one day I would like to see go, because it's not a New York City problem, it's a national problem.
Well, in New York State, there's already legislation that prohibits discrimination for people. For example, a landlord can't refuse you a rental agreement because you're receiving any kind of subsidy. That would be discrimination. And the same thing happens certainly with veterans. The Attorney General, for anyone who wants more information, the New York State Attorney General, Tish James, who is someone who's demonstrated time and again that she cares about the individual person. In her website, there is outlined a lot of the information that anyone who feels they're being discriminated against can read that and see what rights they have. I mean, they can always come to my office as well. I'd be happy to give them the information. But you cannot discriminate from people based on a legal source of rent. So if anyone's ever experienced that, be happy to help them.
Perfect. Thank you, Senator. Now, just in case you're not within the senator's district, if you're looking for your senator, you can go on, and for New York State, I know for sure, you can go on, locate my senator or my senator, and type in your address, and boom, you'll get your district senator right there.
Or you can go to the New York State Senate we have our own website. And if you go to the New York State Senate website and you put your address, you can discover who your actual senator is.
Great, that's another
something
way
I recommend everybody do, because there you'll learn about any piece of legislation that your senator has passed or is proposing, what he or she is doing with the budget, and you can hold the fire to the feet of your electeds if you don't believe that they're doing the right thing.
Senator, what's at least maybe just one or two bills that you've had passed that has been very high in your priority?
Oh, well, my first year in the Senate, I came in a special election. I'm sorry, my first year after we became the majority, which is after the election of 2018, I had the honor of passing the New York State DREAM Act. I am a person that's very pro-marginalized people and very pro-immigrant, especially those that are undocumented, because if we're going to be honest, they work for jobs that no one else wants to take. They get exploited. They get abused. And many of them live here in the state in the shadows. They're afraid to talk to law enforcement, so many of them are abused or crimes committed against them. They remain silent because they're afraid that local law enforcement will then report them to immigration. Let me regress. The DREAM Act is an act that allows all undocumented immigrants to get tuition assistance at New York State and New York City CUNY and SUNY schools. Very proud of that. I started talking about the other one, which really was one that I worked a lot. That's why it always comes to mind. In 2019, the bill that I passed that became law is called the Green Light Bill. What the Green Light Bill does is it allows undocumented immigrants to obtain a driver's license. A lot of people may say, well, how is that significant? And I was saying that they work the hardest. They get the jobs that no one else wants. They were abused, and they wouldn't talk to law enforcement. Now, if you get pulled over and you have a license, all you have to establish is residency for a time period in New York State, and certain other minor qualifications. You don't need a social security number. You don't need that kind of stuff. But you do have to establish residency. You can do, for example, a phone bill. Then you're allowed to obtain a license. And if police pull you over, they can't ask you your immigration status already. You have a license. You show your license, your registration, your insurance, and you go about your way. You may get a summons or not, but you don't have to fear that you're going to be separated from your family. That was the Green Light Bill. So the DREAM Act and the Green Light Bill are two things that I'm very proud of. Also, even though I wasn't the main sponsor, I worked diligently with 6 or 7 other colleagues in reforming the criminal justice system here in New York. And very proud of that, because up until then, primarily, the treatment you got in criminal court was based on the color of your skin. based on, or the bank account, how much money you have in your bank account or your family. It wasn't fair, especially with minor offenses. So, for example, a person in a wealthy neighborhood commits an offense. The big ones are marijuana convictions. They've ruined many lives. Mom and dad can go and bail you out, $500. You go back home. Whereas, generally speaking, the poor person, and mostly black and brown communities, got stuck at Rikers for months at a time because they couldn't pay $500 to bail them out. So what happens? They lose their job, they lose their scholarships, they lose everything that they had established. And that, to me, was an inherently unfair system. And so by passing and working on this issue of fairness in our criminal justice system, is something that I'll never forget and I'm very proud of.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Green Act, the Green Line bill.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've worked on recently in my office, as an executive officer for a nonprofit for veterans in the community.
Mm-hmm.
We're based in Crotona Park East.
Yes.
And because of the migrant issue, a lot of services from, like, say, Thrognex, were sending people to my office and, looking for coats, food, Christmas presents, etc.
Yes.
And one of the programs that we did recently, I'm going to say about a month and a half ago, was try to help a lot of them in one resource, immigration resource fair, where we had to give them some understanding of some of their rights. One of the proposition was getting a license. That's one thing. Getting a ITN number so that they can do their taxes, which opens up them for an possibility to open a savings account or a bank account. Although in New York City, an immigrant cannot work legally through an I-8 or an I-9 that they need, they can have a business, which I always find kind of weird, that they can own a business but not work. So the goal was to give the ones that are illegal.
No, we don't use the word illegal. We say undocumented.
Undocumented, thank you. For the ones that were undocumented, so they can understand that, yes, it's a difficult process, but New York City is a sanctuary city, and they have rights here. The organizations that we were giving them the understanding to, let's say the tax service, I think it was Liberty Tax Service that day, helps them get the ITN number. But also at the same time, they have to understand them filing their taxes gives them the ability to say, this is how long I've been here, and gives them a source of revenue. So when they do come up for, let's say, citizenship or a green card, it gives them that much more power to continue.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps provide revenue to the state.
Yes, as well.
That's critically is important, because there's this misconception that undocumented immigrants or immigrants in general are a drain in our society, when the reality is that they contribute billions of dollars to our state and federal coffers, billions, and they don't get much back because they can't, because they're undocumented. So this fallacy that they drain our system, it's just racist rhetoric, because the reality is they are an asset to our community, and they take the jobs that nobody else wants. I can tell you that because I've seen it myself. I've seen examples, read about examples. There was a small town somewhere, I believe in Oklahoma, where they passed these restrictive laws on people hiring undocumented, and the people that were there that were undocumented working and harvesting the farms, they all disappeared because they were afraid of retribution. And the town, it was a disaster for the town because they had no one to pick the strawberries. They had an economy where these immigrants were now buying Latino products in their stores, and they were selling it, the local stores. And when the immigrants left, all these businesses couldn't sustain themselves. You look at Florida, with a governor whose name I'd rather not mention, but he did the same thing, these restrictive anti-immigrant laws. And you see their construction sites are mostly empty now. The hospitality industry and many other industries that depend on immigrant labor are up in arms because it's hurting. So, we have to make sure that we understand, we look beyond the rhetoric, we look beyond the gaslighting, and really try to appreciate what immigrants bring to this country. We are a country, what immigrants bring to this country. We're a city of immigrants, a country of immigrants, And we cannot forget that, because it seems to me that many people now in society want to forget that. But without immigrants, either documented or undocumented, this country wouldn't be in the position that it's in.
Senator, what are two bills that you're currently working on that you'd like the audience to know about?
Well, I have one bill which it's going to give, I don't know how you feel about cannabis, but I have one bill that's going to give a certain tax relief to those that are going to start the cannabis business. So they get taxed a little less. Now, why is that big? Well, look, the marijuana itself was an extremely destructive. The way it was enforced was very destructive for our communities. Many kids lost opportunities because of marijuana convictions. We now have an industry. We're legalized, and why do we legalize? People don't realize it's primarily a tax-generating legalization. There are hundreds of millions of dollars that they estimate are going to be generated in tax revenues once they get it right. But I want to see these businesses succeed, especially those that are social equity applicants, people that were, mostly black and brown communities that had the convictions that ruined lives. I want them to get the benefits of these tax abatements. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to push. On a larger scale level, the New York State Senate has committees, and every committee has a chairperson depending on the topic. For example, there's the Labor Committee, there's the Codes Committee, which deals mostly criminal justice. There's the Crime Victims Committee. They deal with crime victims and incarceration facilities. I have what's called the Cities Committee, or the Cities One Committee, which is my committee. Legislation that impacts the city directly goes through my committee. One area where I've been, starting with de Blasio and now with the current mayor, Adams, we've been working behind the scenes to completely reform the property tax system in New York City. It's baffling to me that houses that are worth millions.
Hello, everyone. This is Sergeant Gonzalo Duran, once again from Devil Dog USA. I'm the CEO, and I'm asking you for your help. 99% of all our programs and events is free to the community. We do this by having sponsorship that's at a sliding scale, and we ask for small donations from the community. So how can you help us? Well, one, you can go to our website, www.devildogUSAinc.org. Look at the articles, look at the events that we do, look at the pictures, and if you have it in your heart, go on our donation page and help us out. If you want, go to one of our events, see how the community helps us, see how we give ourselves and we support and we bring the community in one place to support the military, the veterans, and the community itself, and drop off a little cash to our donation boxes. And until I see you guys, as always, God bless America.
Millions of dollars sometimes pay less taxes than, let's say, a two-family house in the Bronx, in the Central Bronx, by where your office is at. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think by reforming them and creating a more just, a fair system, not only can you reform the property tax system, but you can also create more affordable housing. And so those are the two pieces of legislation that I'm going to be pushing hard for. Now, there are other stuff that we're working on. We all sponsor or co-sponsor other senators' bills. Depending on the issue, I will co-sponsor, some pieces of legislation from my other colleagues that I think are important. But from my perspective as the City One's chair in the Senate, I really want to modify the property tax system in the city.
I know that's something that a lot of people like to see happen. So what kind of pushback do you see you're going to get from that?
I don't know if I haven't measured it. I haven't gotten any yet. I think the most difficult part of it is that I have to work with the city and the city representatives in the mayor's office. And, they have a million things to deal with. Whereas that's just my committee. That's what I'm dealing with. And so I want them to act at my speed. And sometimes it's unfair for me to be able to request that. But it's really that. It's the pace. The average piece of legislation from when you propose it to when it becomes law is about 3.5 years. Many people don't know that. You can, unless it's something that's so egregious that the governor wants to sign right away, or something that's needed on an emergency basis. But legislation takes time. One more thing I want to mention is that I've proposed a bill to limit the sale and purchase of scooters. Many precinct commanders throughout the Bronx and in my district complain to me about the level of crime where they use these scooters. And so I have a legislation that's going to limit how you buy it on a wholesale basis and how you sell it on a retail basis. These are things that seem simple, but can impact so many people, can impact criminal justice, can impact policing. Like the Green Light Bill, which has impacted almost 250,000 families. That's essentially what I want to be doing in the next session in January.
Well, I can tell you right now, the scooter one, I'm all about that one. I mean, every week I'm almost hit by one of them.
Yeah.
3 times a week or so. Now, mostly we've talked about the veterans and the general population. One aspect of your job is also to help active duty militaries, for the viewers that may not know. If an active duty military is having an issue, let's say with the command level issue, and they feel they're being, they can't go through the regular chain of command, one option they have is the congressional inquiry, which they can look up their senator, or depending on the home of record or where they're stationed at, it gets a little confusing sometimes, but home of record should always be, a start to that. And then the second thing is absentee ballots for voting rights. Once again, depending on what you have as your home of record and where you're currently stationed makes a little bit of a difference, but knowing who your legislative is at the moment are important things that active duty military are sometimes are aloof about because of busy doing deployments and, being away from home so long, they sometimes even forget on that. Have you ever, well, I'm assuming it has happened already, dealt with any congressional inquiries in your office?
No, we haven't dealt with anything, but we work closely with our congressional representative, which is primarily Richie Torres.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we reach out to that office to help us with things of that nature, they've always been helpful. But us directly, not, because generally speaking, that's a federal issue.
Of course.
Excuse me. So we don't, for us, it's mostly state level.
Okay.
So you can have Schumer, and you can have whoever your local congressional representative
For the federal level. There you go.
Federations, right.
Because, they can't make changes. They can't change the military law or anything like that, but asking them a question for that normally gets stuff speeded up here and there.
Sure. Yeah.
Also, for the veterans, I know if they have a claim that the VA is maybe lagging on, nothing within like 6 months, but if something's lagging for over a year, that's another way they can get some movement through a congressional inquiry.
Right.
Now, as an executive officer for a nonprofit, I've been fortunate to work with you over the years. Recently, we were at the we worked together at the LGBTQ Youth and Safe Haven Project,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't have a chance to thank you personally, but I'd like to say thank you for your help in that.
Oh, my pleasure. Really, it's something that I look forward to helping. It's a great project.
I spent the year trying to gather up all the, the right momentum to get it. A lot of the programs that we try to do is a little out of the box. So at the time when we did it was about 2 months ago, the height of the LGBT community issues were going on, and I didn't think it was going to happen. But with your office, Apollonia, Queen of the Bronx, Reverend Carmen Hernandez with the New York City LGBT Chamber of Commerce, putting it together. Also, Epic Rev Vision, having a urban community with the LGBT directed with the unification of dialogue and hip hop was something that was, monumental for me to see. And the Bronx does have a large LGBT community, but to be so openly with the urban community was something that I didn't see. I haven't seen that much of, which I was surprised that it all happened together.
Yeah, look, the I'm not as surprised because generally speaking, the urban community is a lot younger, and they're generally speaking more accepting of everyone, and so that didn't surprise me as much. It surprised me that it took that long. A lot of people in the urban community suffer some of the same issues that members of the LGBTQ community do. So there's some synergy there where we can work together and work for essentially the betterment of everyone.
Yes.
We work a lot with Apollonia. She is someone who impresses me every day because she just does it for the people that she wants to help. She does it for the community. It's not for herself. And whenever she calls, we're there. And we've been working with her for some time now. Last thing we did, I believe, was Christmas in July. She does an event at Christmas in July. And then we work with other groups that for the same cause. So, it's another area we invite people that have issues. A lot of times they're discriminated against, or they're assaulted or ignored by law enforcement. So that's an area we also try to help. If anybody has any issues like that, they can always come to my office.
Yes. Another event that we met each other at, one of the programs that we sponsored was the street naming for Private Morero.
Yes.
I believe his name was
Moreno. Yes.
Moreno.
Yeah.
He just happened to be a Dominican descent, but he was the first person, I believe, killed regarding the war in Iraq.
Oh, he was in Iraq. He enlisted when he was 18 years old, and he was killed in the line of duty in Iraq. And not many people knew about it. So the local councilwoman, Piarini Sanchez, was asked by some advocates in the family to do a street naming to recognize the work of a young Dominican immigrant who really wanted to defend his country and serve in the military. And he was killed at a very young age. And so we thought it was a high honor to be there and name a street after this young man. It's something that it essentially recognizes not only the efforts of this young man, but the efforts of the immigrant community who want to serve this country in many different capacities. And that young man is an example of that.
And it's a beautiful ceremony. For me, I wrote an article about it, and I told, my friends as well, whenever a veteran has a problem, they can walk down that street and know that the city of New York has remembered us in small to large capacities.
Oh, absolutely. Sacrifices like that, when you pay the ultimate sacrifice, then that should never be forgotten. And, to me, generation of kids that are coming, especially generation of young Latino kids that live in that community, they walk by that street and they see the name of a young military man who passed away in the line of duty. But see that and to the Latino community, it's a source of pride. And maybe they want to enlist in the future. Maybe they want a career in the military. But having it there is extremely important for the people that we represent, for the young men and women to see.
One of the programs that we've been working on as an organization is the burn pits. So in 2011, I started with an article on what was important about it, and that brought up traction. And I think a year or two later, I was contacted by an organization called Has Hearts. They use art to give veterans a voice in the community, and they actually sponsored me with this shirt right here, regards to
nice work
as being a sergeant, the lungs, and then the exposures are right here. Recently, the PACT Act was passed, which I believe is one of the things that saved the VA from being privatized. And then with the program, the PACT Act itself expanded the exposures from Vietnam with Agent Orange to the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans with the burn pits, and even the Camp Lejeune water situation that they had over there. Recently, the registration had passed, but what I would like for the community, the veteran community, and military and in general public as well to know is that just because the registration hasn't passed doesn't mean you shouldn't sign up through the burn pit registry. And also, if you have the documents for any exposures or any issues, you should put in a claim at the VA for it.
Oh, now should you not wait? You should do it immediately.
Yes,
absolutely. There's gonna be a lot of people there. Make sure you register immediately so that you're in a position to benefit from this.
Yes. Something like that. A lot of veterans, some come back and they will say, look, these are the problems that I had. Let me fill it out. Let me submit it. Other places where they feel like they want to stay up away from having, say, look, I was hurt or anything like that. And like maybe sometimes pride get in the way. We always try to encourage them, if you have an injury. The problem is if you let it linger down the line, it may be something you can't recover from.
Yes.
So
apply. That's the rule of thumb.
now, on a side note, this is more for what we've been doing here. One of the programs that we work with the Bronx Veteran Political Party. It's a nonprofit that tries to help veterans try to get into office. Obviously, we can't, as a nonprofit, support, fundraise, or anything like that, but we can give them the knowledge and help with voter registrations. I mentioned earlier the absentee ballots. That's another thing that we try to promote at the unit level. From my understanding right now, I believe there's 10% or less of veterans in the elected offices. Our goal would be to try to push to get more people to register, not only to try to be elected, but also register to vote and be a part of the democracy in general. Because military and veterans, their whole service was to say, look, these are your fundamental rights, the Constitution, et cetera, like that. What does you have in trying to get more veterans into elected positions?
Well, it's hard to know who's a veteran unless they say it. If anyone wants to get elected, and anyone who's serious about wanting to run for public office, I would encourage them to do so. And if it's a veteran who wants information, to put him in his position to run is someone that we'd be happy to help. But it really has to come from within. The veteran has got to want to get immersed in these waters and advocate for many issues that impact veterans. We have committees in the Senate and the Assembly that deal with veteran issues. Senator Spanton from Staten Island, I believe that's her committee. And through those committees is where a lot of the work happens. Anyone who's interested in running, any veteran that wants to run, let's say, should come and go to Albany and see a legislative session, see the Assembly, see the Senate, see how government works up there. Hopefully they're reading about all the issues. They're boning up on the issues to make sure they understand what's best for the community. For example, for me, I'm not a veteran. However, I have a nephew who's a corporal in the Marines. I have two uncles that served in Vietnam. One of them suffered from PTSD. I know, based on my dealings with them, what are some of the important things to them. And a lot of veterans, when they come back, things like housing, always a critical component. But a veteran who's a veteran and has gone through some of these issues that I could never understand because I wasn't a veteran, that wants to get involved in the process, I highly encourage them to do it. If anything, to offer a different perspective. They're in a position to say, I lived it, and therefore give me the opportunity to represent you. But certainly, everyone should register to vote. Everyone should get involved in the political process, especially veterans. Apathy is the worst thing that we have in our society. I know that many people say, no matter what, my vote doesn't make a difference. It's not true. If you have a veteran that wants to get involved in the political process, that veteran will be better suited to help us understand the issues that impact that community.
That's beautiful, Senator. Thank you so much for saying that. Honestly, I didn't think, out of all the list of things that I could possibly think of, going to Albany and seeing a session never crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to D.C. to visit my sister one time and wanting to see the president to the White House, and that got me right there in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, look at that. And so that's something I'll bring up when I speak to.
Well, every year, the Senate honors a veteran from the district every year. And we have a beautiful ceremony up there where we bring the veterans and we give them a plaque, a proclamation, and we honor them in the highest way that we can. It's a beautiful ceremony. So maybe perhaps, yeah, we can have an event where during that day when we do the celebration, you can bring some veterans up there. And the beautiful thing about it is that when it comes to veterans, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's a beautiful thing to see how our political differences are put aside to recognize and honor our veterans. The last time I saw that was a few months ago, where I bought a real authentic American hero who stood up for democracy on January 6th. His name is Sergeant Aguilino Gonel. He was an Iraq veteran. He was a member of the Capitol Police on January 6th, and he stood there defending democracy. He was assaulted. He was brutally beaten. 15 hours he stood his ground. A veteran. We brought him up to the Senate floor, and it was just a beautiful thing to see, because some of the far-right senators who may have an issue how we characterize what happened January 6th, but I call a spade a spade. That was an assault on our democracy. Weren't as forthcoming, but generally speaking, most of them on both sides of the aisle came to pay their respects. And if you bring a group of veterans from the Bronx, I'll make sure that they get their due respect.
Well, I'll be happy to help in that, Senator.
Thank you.
On another note, Devil Dog will be celebrating its 10-year anniversary and also opening our second office, and the second one will actually be in your district as well. I'm hoping that if we send a letter to your office, that we can probably get you to either one or both of those events.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you guys need. In fact, I'll give my office number here so people who need help. My office's number is 718-991-3161. But I also give my personal cell number to my constituents because I work for them. That's 347-582-8173. Anyone who needs assistance, call one of those two numbers, and we'll make sure that we move on it.
And just in case, I'm assuming you would be willing to help anybody, but just in case you're not in their district, they also should try to reach out and push towards their Senate district.
Yeah, what we do sometimes is, and again, depending on the issues, because I've defended people outside of my district in housing court. A senior with bad eyesight, and when I evict her, I'll go there and I'll defend the person. But generally speaking, we'll connect them to their senator or their assembly person or their city council person so that person can get assistance from them.
Senator, is there anything else you would like to talk about that we haven't touched on?
On the issue, you did mention the absentee ballot. There's a movement by the conservatives, Republicans, the MAGAs. They want to limit absentee ballots, mail-in ballots. And I don't know if they're talking about an exception for the military, but that would be a major, major travesty for the military. What we should be talking about is how we make it easier for our veterans to vote. And so if anybody needs assistance with that, I encourage them to call the local congressman, or they can call my office. Ruskin Pimentel, my communications director, we call him the sergeant, will be there to help.
Okay. And just for the audience, absentee ballots aren't just if you're deployed or outside of New York or the location of your home of record, but also if you're at the VA center and you're a resident or inpatient, if you are disabled and can't make it, if you have a caregiver and unable to go yourself or situations like that, that's what the absentee ballot is for. Always, like we try to do is, we're not trying to tell you who to vote for, but try to get the knowledge and at least be registered.
You got to be registered, and regardless of your political ideology, make sure that you come out and vote. It makes a difference. We look at who votes. We look at the swaths of areas to see where the majority of votes coming from. And naturally, if you spot a region where more votes are coming out of there, you're going to, by almost instinctively, be more sensitive to those areas because you know that the numbers are going to be larger. So that's why it's important for everyone to go out and vote so that everyone's taken into consideration and no one's treated any differently.
Okay. Well, Senator, I know you're very busy, and I want to say thank you so much for giving us this time, as much as you have, to speak with us and letting the viewers know what what you're about, what you do, and what you've been working on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, for the audience, this episode, once again, is our 6-year anniversary episode. This milestone, it means a lot. When we started with an iPhone in our office, then transitioned to different platforms and media outlets, and now we're here. Once again, thank you to our executive producers, JM Empire Media and Vero G Productions. Today's show is sponsored by Has Hearts. You can check them out as hashearts.us. It's a Michigan-based organization that uses art to express veterans and their community. Now, once again, this is Vet Talk. I'm your host, Sergeant Gonzalo Duran. If you would like to be a guest, please feel free to reach out at ceo@devildogusainc.org. And as always, God bless America.
God bless America.
Hello, everyone. This is Sergeant Gonzalo Duran, once again from Devil Dog USA. I'm the CEO, and I'm asking you for your help. 99% of all our programs and events is free to the community. We do this by having sponsorship that's at a sliding scale, and we ask for small donations from the community. So how can you help us? Well, one, you can go to our website, www.devildogUSAinc.org. Look at the articles, look at the events that we do, look at the pictures, and if you have it in your heart, go on our donation page and help us out. If you want, go to one of our events, see how the community helps us, see how we give ourselves and we support and we bring the community in one place to support the military, the veterans, and the community itself, and drop off a little cash to our donation boxes. And until I see you guys, as always, God bless America.
Check the Real G Spotlight magazine. It's out every monthly issue, and you can get that at www.madcloud.com. Again, you get that at www.madcloud.com. It's called the Real G Spotlight magazine. If you wanted to be on that, you can contact me on my Instagram at officialverog.